Welcome back to Sci-Fi Book Trek. Today we'll be reviewing Philip K. Dick's A Maze of Death. This was published in 1970. Now it was apparently wrote in 1968. But he couldn't get it published until, he didn't really try to get it published until 1970. And the first copies were accidentally pulped. Because people getting them, they got them back from the printing press and thought, oh, these must be returns, and just pulped them all. So the only copies of the first edition that went out were for libraries and stuff. So they are very rare.
Yeah. Jesus.
But yeah. I mean, there were other publications that year. But anyway, also in 1970, just to give context in the world, you've got Japan. They've launched their first satellite called Oshumi. Sorry for the pronunciation. And then you've got China launches their first satellite a few months after, called Dongfang Ho 1. Sorry for pronunciation. But also, during 1970, Apollo 13 happened, where 3 trained professional astronauts survived the disaster and made it back to Earth, acting like trained professionals. So that's what happened in 1970. I mean, few other things. What was your initial thoughts of it?
The author's foreword, just in one particular point of reference. I'm not going to read the whole thing. In the novel, such and such characters' experiences are based on an LSD experience of my own in exact detail. That's about it.
This is your first Philip K. Dick novel, isn't it?
I mean, I've watched Blade Runner.
Yeah, it's a Philip K. Dick novel.
It's on crack. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some interesting things in it. There's some interesting ideas of social constructs. There's some interesting ideas of how isolated groups become, how certain things form within isolated groups and how certain hierarchies evolve. And
Twitch on Lords of the Flies.
Yes.
Yeah. However, I mean, there are a number of things this touches on. And though it is short, I feel in the hands of, I don't say a lesser writer, I think this would be a tiny short story. But because it's PKD, he puts so much in there. And the initial premise he sets out in the forward, which is unusual for PKD novel to have. The overarching things about religion, he touches on in the forward. It says, I think he starts writing that, and then that's quickly forgotten. Well, not forgotten, but put to a wayside to tell other things and flesh out other ideas. Because I don't think that's fully fleshed out, but I don't think it needs to be. I think it's as fleshed out as it is. But if you read the forward, you would probably have a different idea of what the book is than actually reading the book.
I mean, perhaps the religious overtones permeate throughout the entirety of the the entire novel.
But there is a point where it seems that that's I wouldn't say forgotten about, but plays less emphasis on the story.
I would disagree.
Okay.
I would say the characters almost, I mean, religious adherence to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's silly to talk about. It is a their adherence to the faith, their adherence to the ideas
Of the scripture.
Yeah, it. I mean, there is one character among them that shows atheist tendencies,
Yeah.
and he's seen as almost like a.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never met one of them. Yeah. It's like, how can you be an atheist when we have scientific proof for God's existence? And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a couple of bits that I did kind of like.
Do you like stuff?
When the first character that you meet joins the group, and they have this almost greeting conversation, and the writing prose literally devolves into like this. It's a paragraph just of multiple conversations going on at the same time, and then not too long later, the second character joins in, and it's almost the exact same word for word conversation.
Some little different.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Because that was like when people are entering social groups, again, that theme of the book, that when people are entering social groups, the same stories are trotted out every single time. And if you've ever been at a party, some sort of social event where you don't necessarily know anyone, you'll get the stories trotted out of each member in turn. So you'll be like, oh yes, you'll like this person, they did this, and oh, do you remember when John did this, and do you remember when Andrew did this?
I spilled wasabi on my shirt one time, people! One time!
And it's that weird sort of dichotomy of the people that are in the social group and the people that are outside the social group, but you get to see the same conversation both times. And it's just an interesting way to show that interaction.
The initial premise is a group of people who don't know each other land on the planet, and then,
And then hilarity ensues.
It's a very odd book to describe, but it's a book that could be spoiled, but even if you spoil it, I still think it's worth reading.
But
it was worth the time I put in. Even I would reread this again, just because of the oddness of the world, and also there does seem to be a lot in there, even stuff could easily miss.
Don't get me wrong, I don't dislike it. It's very different to the styles of writing that I'm used to. I don't dislike it out of hand. Some of the stuff is just, like I say, it's like a weird cracked out acid trip that you've just got to keep pushing through.
Because it does drop you in at the deep end.
Yes.
And you just, okay, could I have like a little ramp up to this? No, just drops you in and you're expected to just go with the flow.
But that's the thing. There is at least a concession that I am glad that I finished it, because if I'd have stopped halfway through, I never would have got to the conclusion, clearly. But it never would have made any sense. That is one thing that I can say about this book, is that at least by the end of the book, there is a conclusion that does make sense within the confines of the story, and it explains what has gone before, and it kind of brings a resolution to the actual narrative that at least makes sense, as opposed to the opening chapters of the book where, and that would be my recommendation. Don't stop reading it. Keep going. Push through to the end, because it will make sense. It will give you at least something at the end. You might agree with it, you might disagree with it, but if you stop halfway through, you'll never know the end of it, and it's not... It's hard to describe.
Well, would you say it was at least satisfying, or a one-trick pony?
I would say one-trick pony from my perspective.
Okay.
Once I got to the end, there was at least an explanation. How I felt about it was, oh, makes sense, I guess.
Because there is still some mystery left near the end.
Yeah.
Which I aren't going to, but I don't know. I think I liked it a lot more than you did. I read B.K. Dick's work a few times, so I kind of know some of the themes he works with, and some of the story ideas he comes up with. So I'm kind of more used to it. So I did like it a lot. Overall, I would recommend it. But you think it's worth one read and not?
It's a singular read for me. Okay. And again, I can see...
I mean, do you think it was drawn out, or as just enough? Because I think I would want more. I could easily have more of this. But that's just my personal taste.
I think there was enough for me. I think, like I say, I got part way through it and I was thinking, where is this going?
Yeah.
What is this building to? And yes, it builds to that conclusion. Like I say, it's a worthy conclusion, but I think if it had gone on for much longer, I would have just turned off. I don't think I would have continued with it. And like I say, that's not a dire thing on, don't read it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying read it to the end. It will get there, but it's a harder slog. You know, when we were talking about the time machine and you were talking about how Victorian language or language choice prose would put people off. The difference with that one is that I mean, maybe it was because I was enjoying it. But the difference in that one compared to something like this, I can see more people getting put off in the early chapters of this, just going, where's it going? What's happening? What's the point? And I can see people getting frustrated.
At times, it did remind me of, say, like building a castle on swamp or quicksand.
Well, the king said I was daft to build a castle on a swamp.
And then you're building it up, and then suddenly Philip K. Dick leans in, clicks his fingers, and it all falls down.
It sank into the swamp.
And you got to start rebuilding from the start again. And he does that about 5 times.
Yeah.
And you're like,
that burned down, fell over, then sank into the swamp.
Just let me build a story out of this, please.
Yeah. It's like... and this is the thing. For me, it's very difficult to nitpick, certainly. And that's going to be, like, spoiler review straight away. That's going to be a problem in the spoiler review. It's
Oh, we
very
could spoil
difficult to nitpick because of the nature of the
Yeah.
early story.
Well,
And the thing is, all of the points can be kind of explained.
Yeah.
And that's why, yeah.
I have seen this premise of a story done differently in other sci-fi as well. And it would be interesting to do it in... Like, I wouldn't mind seeing the Star Trek version of it.
I
Bizarrely.
can't say anything about that until we get to spoilers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
a weird one.
It's a weird one. Worth your time. I say for me, I wouldn't probably go back to it.
Thank you for joining us for our review. Hope you liked it, and see you next week for the spoiler talk. Bye.
Bye.
You can say it's a small dick novel. I thought it was funny.